Hi everyone, it is Sunday the 13th of September, and I thought that I would put something up on Instagram that talks a little something on the topic of forgiveness. I really do believe that, God's grace and work in the heart brings about this forgiveness. So let's say, for example, you're not a believer, or you feel somewhat disconnected from a relationship with God, for example. How on earth does forgiveness come about? Well, that's a really interesting question. I'm not going to go into theology of it, but one of the things that I can really say is that we can, through virtue, through habit, begin to instill in ourselves and in our own hearts the requirements and the capacity for forgiveness. And so there are three things that fit into this kind of bill. Firstly, virtue. Virtue is one of the habitus. In English, we call it habit, but it's not quite the understanding of habit that we tend to associate in today's Western language. So, when we think of habit, we think of bad habits, but the habitus goes somewhat a bit deeper. And what we're thinking about here is the fact that a habit leads to an ultimate end. It has an ultimate goal. We might not associate with the goal as we're doing it, as we are partaking in the habit, but generally a habit would lead to either a really good end, or its end is ultimately good, or that the habit is it would lead to a bad end, or that is ultimately not good for us. It's bad for us. So I think that we need to establish that truth first and foremost, because essentially, if we keep on considering habit as something that's bad, then how can we give ourselves the chance to build what is good in us as well? So we need to allow that space and freedom for the goodness in us, which I really do believe comes from God, into something that's practicable for us. Okay, so the three virtues that I do really encourage as the requirement for forgiveness are these three things. The first is humility. The second is compassion. And the third is mercy. Now, I can break these down and give you an hour-long talk on each of these virtues, these habits, these virtues, good habits. But that's not something I'm going to do here. But humility, from the Latin humilitas, meaning grounded, somebody who forgives is somebody who recognizes that they themselves, in themselves, need to be forgiven. Okay, they understand that they can make mistakes, that they're not perfect. So this is something that's really important as a requirement in forgiveness. If we believe that we are perfect, and if we believe that we are not capable of making mistakes, or forgetting that we have made mistakes in the past and have been forgiven for them, then the likelihood is that we are not going to be forgiving ourselves. We're not going to forgive others, and it will make it even more difficult for us to forgive ourselves. Okay, so one of the biggest and greatest hurdles for us as well is to forgive ourselves. So we could be forgiven by another, but sometimes the crux of the matter, and I see this as a nuance in my coaching, is the fact that people don't always forgive themselves, and it does require humility for this act of forgiveness to take place. The second virtue, which is compassion, calm and passion, passion historically meaning this kind of suffering. So com meaning with, so this suffering with. I think that it's easy for us to assume that that a wrong that's done to us or a hurt that's done to us is not coming from a place of woundedness in the other person. So it's really important that essentially we rise above the hurt and the wound and begin to be with that other person's suffering or woundedness, or whatever is the root cause of the hurt that they've caused us, for example. Yeah. And the third, mercy, coming from misericordia, is very similar to that compassion in that it is active, however. So this misericordia is to know in some sort of intrinsic sense the misery of another person. This is a person who will be in touch with themselves and can recognize that they've hurt another person. Really needs that mercy, and it's a requirement for us that we are merciful, that we can then actively forgive the other person. There's all sorts of things that I would like to say further about it, and to be honest with you, I am running a workshop on it on the 21st of November. I'm running a free forgiveness, freedom and healing workshop. So if you are interested in that, you can check out my website or check out my Eventbrite page, Touch of Clarity. And so I hope that this sort of summary or some things to think about regarding forgiveness will be of some sort of help. Okay, take care. Have a good Sunday.